Why is it that when the calendar flips to March 15th, a sense of dread fills the air? Why do we instinctively utter a blessing when someone sneezes? And what's the deal with the fear of broken mirrors? These are all examples of superstitions, those quirky beliefs and practices that have woven their way into the fabric of our daily lives. From the dawn of human history, superstitions have held sway over our actions and decisions. For instance, the tradition of predicting the weather based on animal behavior like Groundhog Day was brought over by German settlers to the U.S. This was a spin on the old German Candlemas Day tradition, where the clergy distributed blessed candles to predict the length of winter and observed animals to gauge their hibernation periods. Friday the 13th, a day synonymous with bad luck, has its roots in both biblical and Norse mythology. The number 12 is often seen as perfect, so adding one more disrupts this balance. Judas the traitor was the 13th guest at the Last Supper, and Jesus was believed to have been crucified on a Friday. Norse mythology tells of the chaos caused by Loki, the 13th guest at a dinner in Valhalla. The fear of this day is so widespread that it has its own name, Frigatriskaidekaphobia. The Romans believed that mirrors housed fragments of the soul, giving rise to the superstition that breaking a mirror would lead to 7 years of bad luck. This was tied to the belief that the body renewed itself every 7 years. Black cats, once considered good luck omens, were demonized in the Middle Ages and linked to witchcraft. The belief that a black cat crossing one's path severed one's connection to God and the path to heaven took hold. The habit of blessing a sneeze stems from the belief that the soul separates from the body during a sneeze. Saying "bless you" was a way to protect the vulnerable soul from the devil. Crossing fingers for luck harkens back to pre-Christian times when crosses symbolized power and unity. People believed there was power in the center of the cross and would make a wish while focusing on this area. The superstition of walking under a ladder has a grim origin. In medieval times, ladders were linked to gallows, and walking under a ladder was seen as a harbinger of death by hanging. Finally, the tradition of making birthday wishes on candles traces back to the ancient Greeks, who would ask the moon goddess Artemis for favors by baking
Pagans used to believe that their spirits living the trees and knocking on the trunks would summon them for protection. The gesture was also used to thank them when something good happened. The tradition later took shape in other cultures. Some Christians associated the tradition with the cross, and Jews associated it with knocking on the wooden doors of synagogues while seeking shelter during the Spanish Inquisition. You can thank the ancient Egyptians for this bad omen. They used umbrellas to protect themselves from the sun, but opening them indoors was considered an insult to the sun god. It was equally as offensive to open one in an area that wasn't sunny. Another theory traces it back to 18th century England, when the mechanics of the modern umbrella made them straight up dangerous when opened in close quarters. Most people wouldn't consider a single cent on the ground to be good fortune, but back in ancient times, it was quite the find. Old civilizations believed that find any metal on the ground was a gift from the gods. Some people believe holding on to the penny will bring good luck, and others think the good luck comes when you give the penny away. Either way, that's a lot value to place on one penny. There are a couple of reasons why spilled salt is supposedly bad luck. The simple explanation is that salt was once used as an expensive trading commodity, so spilling it was just plain wasteful. The other theory is that it was considered a magical substance in ancient times, where it was used to perform rituals. Spilling it meant you were inviting the devil in. Clinking glasses with water in your cup has been bad karma since the ancient Greeks, who only toasted with water to honor the dead. The idea started with the myth that the dead drank from the river Lethe in the underworld to leave behind their corporeal lives. This toasting tradition evolved over time into a superstition that you are wishing bad luck or death upon someone when you cheers with water in your glass. This gambling superstition is rooted in a psychological term called confirmation bias. It's the theory that if you have some preconceived idea about something, your mind is on the lookout for evidence to back that up. In this case, losing at a game against someone who has never played before sticks out in your mind more than all of the times you won. Being tagged in a social media post that says you need to tag other people or you'll be doomed is pretty much a tale as old as time, in one form or another. According to NPR, the world's first chain letter was sent around hundreds of years ago. and the falsely credited author was Jesus. The letter was supposedly sent down to earth after he ascended to heaven and included the line, "He that copieth this letter shall be blessed of me. He that does not shall be cursed." Copies of the letter from the mid-1700s have been uncovered, and the concept of the chain letter still lives on in new forms of communication. The idea of rabbits being lucky is part of Celtic lore. The idea sprung from the fact that they live underground, which made people at the time think they had a direct line of communication with the gods. In more recent times, the animal's reputation for being fertile made rabbit-themed charms popular among women hoping to conceive. Most rabbit foot charms today are actually just made of fake fur and plastic, but the association with luck
There are
remains.
some internet theories that this superstition actually had racist beginnings in the 19th century, but cracks have been something to avoid since far earlier. European and early American folk tales spread the notion that the empty space in cracks, whether in sidewalks, floors, walls, etc., were actually connections from Earth to the spirit world, and messing with them in any way would cause trouble and misfortune. This eventually gave way to the popular nursery rhyme, "Step on a crack and break your mother's back." The wishbone superstition started thousands of years ago with the Etruscan Italian Empire. They predicted the future by observing chickens and viewed the collarbone as a sacred part of the bird. The Etruscans would let the collarbones dry out and then keep them to make wishes. Romans adopted this tradition and started breaking the bones among two people due to a lack of availability. Horseshoes are considered symbols of good luck because of a Christian story about the 10th century Saint Dunstan. He was a blacksmith who was approached by the devil, in disguise, to put shoes on his horse, but Dunstan saw through the disguise and put the shoes on the devil's feet instead. Dunstan agreed to remove the shoes only if the devil agreed never to try and enter a home with a horseshoe hanging on its door. It is customary to hang your horseshoe with 7 nails, but there is some debate over whether they should be hung with the ends point up, so the shoe catches luck, or down so that the shoe pours luck onto everyone who passes through the doorway. You might think the myth of the 4-leaf clover has Celtic origins, but you'd be wrong. The hype around the shamrock started with Adam and Eve when Eve took a 4-leaf clover from the Garden of Eden as a souvenir from the beautiful paradise they were leaving behind when they were exiled. Other cultures, including the ancient Egyptians and yes, the Druid priests of Ireland, who believed that the clovers had healing properties and could ward off evil. It is estimated that the chances of finding a 4-leaf clover is 1 in 10,000. This is another one you can chalk up to confirmation bias. People have a tendency to take notice of the bad stuff to support this theory, but in actuality, there is usually the same balance of good and bad stuff happening to person at any given time. This superstition is believed to have originated in Russia. The good luck involved with a bird doing its business on you is supposedly just the simple fact that it happens so rarely that when it does, it's a blessing. It's also a sign that wealth is heading your way. The origin of this one is a little unclear. One theory is that putting a hat on your bed is too similar to the old practice of putting a dead person's hat on their coffin, and that doing so would bring death to your home. There is also an idea that people used to think that evil spirits lived in their hair and hats, presumably because of the phenomenon we now know as static electricity, and those spirits would transfer to the bed if you put your hat on it. It is also possible that the whole superstition came about to prevent the spread of lice. It's considered bad luck in poker to be dealt a 2-pair hand consisting of black 8s and black aces, regardless of the hole card. The dead man's hand got its name because, according to legend, this was the hand that Wild Bill Hickok was holding when he was shot and killed during a poker game.
Superstition among seafaring folks, bananas are taken very seriously. No one's quite sure how exactly the fear got started. Theories include the notion that spiders and snakes would Trojan horse on board amid the bunches, or that the ethylene gas emitted by bananas as they ripen would spoil the other perishables on board. But some people still take it very seriously, going so far as to ban Banana Republic garb or banana boat sunscreen. Wishing on shooting stars goes back way further than B.O.B. The 1st century, yes, first philosopher Ptolemy, believed that when meteors occurred, it meant that the gods were looking down and paying attention to Earth, and thus available to be pelted with wishes. Called the Scottish curse, this belief is particular to actors. They get around it by referring to the Shakespeare play as the Scottish play, or the Bard's play. According to legend, productions of the play have been particularly accident-prone, An actor who slips up and invites disaster must engage in a cleansing ritual before being allowed back in. Some people believe that your doppelganger, your double walker, per the German word's literal meaning, is an evil twin or even a harbinger of your impending death. An old American superstition had it that all cleaning cloths should be burned before moving to a new home, so that you wouldn't bring any of the bad luck that you'd wiped up at the old place. In early Roman calendars, Martius March was the first month of the year, and dates were expressed by lunar phases as calends cal, nones non, and ides id. Ides of March referred to the first full moon of the year. Full moons have their own association with bad juju, but the real negative context of March 15th started with the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC. Centuries later, the day continued to be marred by everything from catastrophic weather events to the cancellation of The Ed Sullivan Show.